So Lou, thank you for taking the time to meet with me today and just go over, it's just some questions. I think a lot of homeowners don't wake up expecting to hire an attorney over a roofing or window project or construction in general, but unfortunately, it happens every day. Today, I wanted to have a conversation that could hopefully prevent some of that from ever happening. So you spent years practicing construction law, but you've also served in a judicial capacity, whether as a magistrate, special magistrate, temporary judge, arbitrator, or another role where you've had to evaluate construction disputes from a neutral perspective. Before we dive in, could you explain your judicial role and how seeing disputes from both sides has changed the way that you practice construction law?
You end up in front of an arbiter or a hearing officer or a magistrate or a special magistrate for the reason that you're a neutral. We don't take sides when I'm serving in that capacity. I do as a hearing officer for Miami-Dade County because when I'm sitting as a hearing officer, what I'm hearing is basically appeals from civil citations that have been entered either against a contractor or an owner or both. And then I've got to make a decision as to whether the person named in that civil citation can be held responsible and why they're being held responsible. So the hearing officer is a little bit different. I have sat as a magistrate by appointment. The late Judge Ed Klein used to appoint me all the time to sit as a special magistrate to hear discovery disputes and litigation because judges don't have the time to hear all of these disputes. So they'll say, well, okay, if you don't want to come down to court, I'll appoint XYZ to hear this. You'll pay XYZ for his time, and then he'll issue a report to me, and then I'll either adopt the report or I won't adopt the report. And almost always they would adopt the report.
Do you mind just going over, for the whoever's listening to this and also for my own understanding, because I haven't spent a lot of time in courts, just kind of going through the different levels there, as a hearing aid versus, I'm sorry, did I say hearing aid? Is that correct?
Yeah, you did. It was a hearing officer.
Hearing officer, okay, because I said hearing aid and I was like, I think I messed that one up. Hearing officer.
Let me give you an example of a hearing officer situation. When you are, for example, you're licensed with a certificate of competency in Dade County as a roofer. Let's use that as an example. And the inspector goes out there and he sees that you're now doing windows on top of that, and you're not licensed to install windows in this county because that requires a different certificate of compliance. And he issues you a citation, and he issues the homeowner a citation because the homeowner said for you to go ahead and get the windows and put the windows in. So you both get cited for that. You could either pay the citation, then the case won't get heard, obviously, or you can appeal that citation, and then you end up in front of one of the 20 administrative hearing officers that Miami-Dade County has. The 20 of us are appointed by the mayor. We serve 2 to 4 year terms, and all of us have been either related to the industry or have actually worked in code enforcement for the county before. For example, Charlie Danger, who rewrote the South Florida Building Code after Hurricane Andrew, who's almost single-handedly wrote the code that we still use today, the South Florida Building Code. He sits as a hearing officer in the Unsafe Structures Appeals Board Division. I have sat with him. He's very, very bright, very nice man too. There are other people that are retired county people that worked in code enforcement for many years, either in licensing or in Durham or in Department of Revenue if it's a collection case of some sort. And so what they do is they assign us, the clerk of court assigns us every month once or to hear 1 or 2 days of cases like that. Usually a lot of the cases I hear are neighborhood compliance cases. I gave you an example at the beginning where the roofing contractor went above and beyond what he was supposed to do, and he decides to take an appeal. Now he takes an appeal, he appears in front of me, then I've got to make a determination as to whether he's liable under the ordinance or not. And let's say, for example, that the window that he was was replacing was part of the roof structure. It was one of those, bubbles that they were very popular for a period of time. And the roofer's defense is, hey, this is part of my job as a roofer. It's not really part of my job. I'm not installing windows. I'm reinstalling an existing thing.
Skylight or whatnot.
Right. And in that situation, the county would probably lose that case, and it would be, we'd let the contractor off the hook. If, on the other hand, he wasn't licensed to do windows, and he's replaying the bay windows off the kitchen, for example.
Right.
He will be held liable, and he will pay a fine. Now, the county keeps records of contractors that have gone outside the scope of what they're supposed to be doing. And eventually, if you get too many of these little bad marks on your report card,
right.
You end up, and the county does have the right to pull your license to work in this county, your CC. They do. It's not something they do normally. I've always found the county people to be reasonable for the most part, but they have a job to do too.
But I mean, if you're a constant offender, I don't see anything wrong with that. And if anything, I would appreciate that, because that just sharpens the industry.
And you have a lot of that. You get a lot of that after. I mean, we haven't had a good hurricane in Dade County, and I hope we don't have one for 20 years. But after the Hurricane Andrew, for example, there was a lot of illegal contracting going on, and some of it was the insurance company's fault as well. They just couldn't get people to get any work done, so they'd hire anybody. In fact, my first adjuster I had my home insured at that time with Liberty Mutual, which they don't write homeowners anymore, probably because of Andrew. What ended up happening was they brought in a adjuster who was a contractor in Kansas, and I had already hired my GC. We pretty much knew the scope of what was wrong with that particular house. It was livable, but it had at that time was about $60,000 worth of damage. The Kansas adjuster comes in and starts going, well, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. And my contractor, who was kind enough to come and meet me with the Liberty Mutual person, basically read him the Riot Act. The Kansas contractor basically wrote a check for almost every dime of damage that I was claiming. It was wild.
So I was 6 years old during Andrew, and I do recall that night. But it's interesting, as so I've learned, over time, is that the Florida Building Code was really ironed out after Hurricane Andrew, and and actually, I don't know if you know this, but parts of the world, majority of the world, has actually adopted parts of the Florida Building Code.
That's
so we've actually touched the world in regards to the way things are built, which I think is pretty cool. Right. And, just some perspective, I have a lot of friends around the country that have different companies, GCs, roofers, window guys, plumbers, whoever. And the interesting thing is, and I even have some friends in Tampa that do work in the state of Florida. We do work in the state of Florida, anywhere in Florida. But a lot of people won't actually touch Miami-Dade and Broward County because it's so strict. Yeah. And it's interesting, and we haven't been devastated by a storm, like Andrew. Obviously we've had Katrina, we've had Irma, Wilma, which weren't too bad. But it would be interesting now that the Florida Code has been established, running, that all the municipalities, all the inspectors are aware. They've had, how long has it been now? 91, 92. So yeah, 33, 34 years later. So we have everything in place. It would be interesting if we got another bad storm to see, what would happen with out-of-state contractors. And a lot of people joke with me and they're like, oh, I'm sure you're hoping for a hurricane this season. And I really don't. I mean, obviously it's great because it brings revenue, but it also brings chaos that, now, people are already want to get things handled as soon as possible, as soon as you sign a contract. But now if I increase that tenfold.
Well, and that's part of the problem. One of my favorite stories about Andrew isn't even about anything that happened here after Andrew. My parents used to summer in upstate New York every year. and Andrew occurred, and my father calls me and he goes, "How did you make it through the storm?" I go, "Everything was okay." And he goes, "How bad is it down there?" And I said to Dad, "It's pretty bad." I go, "It's south of me." At that time I was living off of 120th, just north of the airport. I said, "Anything south of me is destroyed. I think we're right at the borderline there."
Oh yeah. Well, that's Country Walk. That was right south of you.
Country Walk. Country Walk, and it was just a mess. And my father says, "Well, what do you think I ought to invest in?" And I said, "I would be picking up as much Home Depot stock as I could afford," and he did. And he thanked me to the day he died for that, because he made a lot of money on that thing.
Oh yeah.
But that in and of itself creates a problem, because it's not that it was so much a unique situation. It just caught everybody by such surprise. It was ridiculous. Usually what I tell my contractor clients to do is, if you know a storm is coming, or even if you don't know a storm is coming, you ought to have a provision in your contract that says that, look, if we're in a situation of what we call force majeure, which is a legal term, where we can't follow the timetable that we've originally set for you, or we can't get the material that you need in a timely fashion, or stuff like that, we have the right to come in and rewrite portions of that contract to adjust those changes. If you know that plywood that you're using on the roof is, what is it, 3/4, right? 3/4?
Yeah, 5/8.
All right, or 5/8. Okay, so if it's 5/8, and all of a sudden you realize you can't get 5/8 at the price of $10 a square, cubic foot,
Right.
or whatever they're measuring, then you got to let your clients know that we got a problem. They're not always in favor of that.
Oh no, of course not.
They're not. Now, one way to handle that maybe is that you go back to the insurance company and say, "Here's the problem," and let the insurance company act as the middleman between you, the contractor, and the owner, and basically say, "Well, look, we can get you 5/8 board, but we're going to have to wait an extra 30 days. Or I can get you, 1-inch board, a one board, which is a little bit thicker and might be a little bit harder to work with from your standpoint as the roofing contractor, but we can do it."